An MMA fighter threw a sweat-soaked rag at an old man punching a bag. Seconds later, Sylvester Stallone stepped forward and said, just 6 words that changed the entire gym. Before we dive into what really happened that morning, if you love Keanu Reeves and his quiet kindness, like and comment yes below. The gym opened at 5 a.m., but he was always there by 4:45. No one noticed at first. Just another guy in a faded hoodie, gray track pants, scuffed sneakers. He didn't grunt like the lifters, didn't shout like the trainers, didn't even nod at the front desk kid, who barely looked up from his phone. He walked with the slow, deliberate gait of someone not in a rush to prove anything, especially not here. At Iron Temple Gym, boasting and noise were currency. Fighters clashed gloves during warm-ups like thunder. Sweat hit the floor before the sun hit the skyline. Cameras flashed. Phones rolled. Reputation mattered more than rest. But this man, he didn't belong to the usual rhythm. He took the corner station with the second-row heavy bags, not the cleanest spot. The mats were worn, the mirrors fogged. But it was quiet. Unbothered, he laid his duffel down gently, pulled out worn wraps, and began coiling them around his hands with almost meditative calm. His movements were not slow, just controlled. When he shadowboxed, he didn't swing wild or pace the floor. Every shift of weight had a center. Every breath landed with the step. His jab wasn't fast, but it snapped air with precision, like he was tuning something only he could hear. People started noticing him vaguely. A few thought he looked familiar, but he didn't speak, didn't check his phone, didn't wear earbuds, just trained and left. By the 3rd day, someone finally whispered, "That guy looks like, nah, can't be. Why would he train here?" One of the front desk regulars called him that silent dude. Another dubbed him Yoda after seeing his form during footwork drills. Nobody asked his name. But it wasn't just how he trained. It was when he never came during peak hours. Always right at sunrise. Always alone. And he never used the locker room. Just towel, water, wraps. Quiet in, quiet out. That morning, the gym felt a little louder than usual. Blake walked in, 6'2", shaved sides, UFC shorts, and an entourage with ring lights. Blake was the kind of fighter who won more sponsorships than rounds. He'd gone viral twice, once for a knockout, once for mocking a security guard on camera, and now he was back filming a day in the life. As Blake strutted toward the center mats, his cameraman whispered, "Dude, old guy's hogging your bag." Blake looked over. There in the back corner, the quiet man was mid-combo. A jab, hook, weave, step out. Re-enter? No sound but breath and thud. Blake smirked. "Hey, Gramps," he called across the gym. "You training for a nursing home fight club?" A few snickers rose around the floor. Someone muttered, "Damn." The man didn't flinch, didn't respond. He just kept working. Blake chuckled louder, slapped his gloves together, and walked past him, bumping his shoulder on the way. Keanu Reeves didn't even blink. He just reset his stance and threw the cleanest right cross of the morning. But no one noticed, not yet. Blake Preston didn't walk into a room. He entered it. The front doors of Iron Temple flung wide open like a wrestler's intro. His entourage followed, 2 of them lugging camera gear, one already live-streaming to his 800K followers. Blake wore his brand, a sleeveless hoodie emblazed with Preston punishment, gym shorts tight enough to show every flex, and a swagger that dared anyone to look away. "Yo, morning, kill crew," he called out, smirking toward the front desk. "Where's my throne?" The receptionist didn't answer. She never did. She just gave a half nod and went back to her energy drink. The gym atmosphere shifted just slightly. More noise, more thuds. A few guys lifted heavier. One girl in the squat rack rolled her eyes, but adjusted her posture. That's what Blake did. He brought attention like static in the air. He scanned the gym floor like a king surveying land he already owned. Cameras were rolling. This would be his Monday motivation video. Blake turned toward the lens. Back in the grind, baby. Day starts with blood and ends with protein. And then he saw it. His bag, the one in the center row, dead middle of the camera's sweet spot. It wasn't just a punching bag. It was a prop. Part of his set, except someone was using it. Keanu Reeves stood calmly, one foot slightly behind the other, working through a precise drill. Cross, hook, pivot, elbow tight, shoulders low. Blake blinked, frowning. Who the hell? The man was older, gray in the beard. Hoodie damp with sweat. Wraps faded like they'd survived a war. But what really got Blake wasn't how the guy looked. It was how quiet he was. No grunts, no breathing theatrics, just clean movement and focus, like the bag was the only thing that existed. And that annoyed Blake. He sauntered over, waving the camera in closer. "Excuse me, sir," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Didn't know ARP members were training for comeback seasons. A few heads turned. The camera zoomed in. Blake grinned wider. Keanu glanced over briefly, just a look, neutral, almost polite. Then he turned back to the bag and continued. "That did it." Blake reached down, picked up his towel, and casually tossed it across the top of the bag right into Keanu's space. "Mind scooting over, Pops? Some of us are still chasing titles." Keanu stopped, took a breath, removed the towel, folded it neatly, set it down on the bench. Not a word. Blake chuckled and turned to his camera. "Have you ever seen dignity folded like laundry?" His crew laughed, but across the room, a man in a black hoodie and old sneakers looked up from the rowing machine. He'd been watching the whole time. He didn't laugh. He didn't film. He just whispered under his breath. He has no idea who he just messed with. The next 10 minutes were a slow build of humiliation. Blake didn't just stop at snide remarks. He circled Keanu like a lion, pretending the gazelle had wandered into the wrong part of the savannah. Only this lion had a camera and a need for likes. Keanu tried to ignore it. He moved to a different bag. Same rhythm, same form, same breath. Cross, hook, step, reset. But Blake followed, gloves on, breathing heavier now, not from training but from performance. He mimicked Keanu's form with exaggerated stumbles, flailing arms and cartoonish wheezing, confusion, respect. Stallone was still standing near the mat, arms crossed. He wasn't smiling. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to pin silence to every wall of the gym. His gaze lingered on Blake's back as the younger man slunk away. Then he turned to Keanu. "They'll remember this one," Stallone said. Keanu shrugged, sipping water. "They won't. Not for long. It's not about me." Stallone's eyes softened. "No, but it's about what you didn't do. That's what sticks." Keanu sat down, back against the wall, arms resting on his knees. He looked around, not at the crowd, but at the floor, the ceiling, the old punching bags with frayed stitching, like he belonged here more than any camera ever could capture. A young fighter from earlier, a wiry kid with taped wrists and nervous eyes, approached hesitantly. He cleared his throat. "Sir, I just wanted to say, I didn't know it was you. I mean, not that it should matter." That was Keanu looked up. "Just training." The kid paused, then nodded. "Still, thanks." He walked away, but straighter this time. The rest of the gym began to breathe again. Weights clinked softly. Jump ropes snapped back into rhythm. But something was different. The atmosphere wasn't just quiet. It was grounded, like everyone had stepped into a space where ego couldn't follow. Stallone turned to leave, but just before heading toward the exit, he tossed a towel toward Keanu. "Next time you show up," he said, "you better let me know. I'll bring my gloves and some humility." Keanu caught the towel with one hand and didn't even glance at it. "Only if you promise not to talk so much." Stallone laughed. Just once, and the gym finally exhaled. Not from shock, not from awe, from the rare weight of witnessing, discipline, and knowing it never needed to raise its voice. That evening, the footage was gone. Not deleted, just missing. Blake's live stream corrupted, his cameraman's files glitchy. The gym's internal CCTV somehow didn't record the hour between 6 TARS and 7 a.m. It was as if the whole event had been swallowed by silence. But the memory that stayed, word spread the old way, whispered in locker rooms, muted in DM threads. Trainers talked, fighters repeated. The story became a ghost, half rumor, half warning. "Did you hear about the guy who clowned a janitor and got schooled in front of Stallone?" "Nah, that wasn't a janitor. That was Keanu Reeves. You're kidding. I saw it. And even if they hadn't, people acted like they had. The next morning, Iron Temple opened just like always. Chalk dust in the air, lights flickering above the squat racks. A few familiar faces early. Then he walked in. Same hoodie, same old duffel bag, quiet steps, no cameras this time, no phone, no security detail. Keanu Reeves returned to the same bag, same gloves, same motion. But now everyone stepped aside, not out of fear, out of something more solid, something heavier than hype. Respect. Even Blake, now training in the far corner, isolated from the group, looked up when Keanu passed. Their eyes met for half a second. Blake didn't nod, didn't smirk, he just looked away. That was enough. One of the trainers walked by Keanu and said, "Morning, Mr. Reeves." Keanu paused, turned his head slightly. It's just Keanu. But the trainer did not respond, just smiled and moved on. The young fighter from the day before, Alex, stood by the speed bag, watching from the mirror. He'd been practicing Keanu's movement. Shoulders down, eyes steady. Not to impress, just to improve. Keanu noticed. He walked over between sets and said, "You're tilting too early on the pivot." Alex blinked. "What?" Keanu gestured to his foot. "Right before you shift. Wait. You give it away with your eyes. Practice blind. Feel it." Alex nodded, eyes wide. "Yes, sir." And for the next 10 minutes, Keanu worked with him in silence, adjusting, demonstrating, not instructing, passing something down. In the far corner of the gym, Stallone returned too. No big entrance, no announcement. Just leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching the way a teacher watches his students learn from someone greater. Still serving, he whispered to himself. That day, no one filmed. No one asked for autographs. No one tried to challenge him again. But every athlete in that building trained just a little harder, stayed a little longer, complained a little less. And when Keanu finished his final round, wiped his brow, and walked past the reception, the girl at the desk whispered under her breath, "He's not a guest here. He is the gym." And no one argued. The days passed. Keanu came and went, always before sunrise. No interviews, no media, no entourage. Just the same hoodie, the same bag, the same steady hands wrapping worn gloves with the precision of a man who didn't fight for attention, only for discipline. But the gym, it had changed. People arrived earlier. Music played softer. The mocking jokes faded, replaced by quiet nods and sharpened focus. The energy was no longer about dominance. It was about presence, grit, consistency. And it all traced back to one man who never raised his voice. Blake never tried to spar with him again. He still trained, but he trained differently. No more camera crew. No more arrogant banter. He worked harder now. And when people asked him what happened that day, he just shook his head and said, "I was lucky it wasn't worse." Some thought Keanu would eventually reveal more, that he'd tell a story, post a reflection, maybe even turn it into a movie. He didn't. He just kept showing up. One morning, a kid, barely 15, stood by the doorway holding a gym bag that looked too big for his frame. His shoes were old. His hoodie had holes. He kept staring at Keanu as if waiting for permission to exist. Keanu walked over and said nothing, just handed the kid a jump rope. "Start here." That was it. And somehow it was everything. Because what happened in that gym wasn't just a story of a man being disrespected or a bully getting embarrassed. It was about something far deeper. The kind of quiet strength most people miss because they're too busy chasing noise. Keanu never hit Blake. He didn't humiliate him with force. He held his ground with silence, with mastery, with truth. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes a real fighter. Sometimes the loudest person in the room is the weakest, and sometimes the one who walks in unnoticed, changes everyone without saying a word. True power doesn't announce itself. It shows up early, trains when no one's watching, and walks away before the applause ever begins. Have you ever crossed paths with someone like that? Someone who didn't need titles or followers to earn your respect? If this story moved you, if you believe the strongest people often say the least, comment "enjoy" below to let us know you're still here. Because maybe silence isn't a weakness. Maybe it's the highest form of strength,